There's this memorable scene in Tim Burton's 1989 Batman where the Joker and his henchmen are in the Gotham Art Museum destroying various pieces of art, but at the last minute, the Joker saves this one piece of art. A disturbing piece of art, which the image has always stuck with me. Later, this same artist would go on to inspire Christopher Nolan's version of the Joker. But who is the artist behind this painting?
Francis Bacon.
This would be the artist Francis Bacon, who lived as an openly gay man and whose life is depicted in the biopic Love is the Devil, starring Derek Jacobi and Daniel Craig. And this film follows the relationship that the two men shared, as well as looking at various aspects of Francis Bacon's life. But this film is not your traditional biopic, and it goes about telling the story in a very untraditional way. Love is the Devil is very much attempting to be a part of Bacon's work as opposed to following a traditional formulaic model. Now, the artist Francis Bacon is somebody who I have always been interested in learning more about, so when I found out that there was a movie about his life and found out also that he was an openly gay man, it got my interest really high because this is a type of artist whose work kind of created an idea of who I thought the man was. But the film, even though kind of confirms some of my ideas, it also strays away from what I thought. And the vast majority of this film is between the relationship between Daniel Craig, who plays a man by the name of George Dyer, who was in an actual relationship with Francis Bacon. And the way the two meet is very strange because he supposedly broke into the house, fell right from the ceiling down onto the floor. And this scene is kind of strange because he makes him a deal that he won't call the police as long as he sleeps with him that night. And I read that this story has often been disputed as a legend or a myth, but it is really cool that the film shows it the way that the myth is. But the big meat center of the story, their relationship, which is very much one that is kind of shaky and not really secure. In particular, the way that Francis Bacon had an idea that he wanted more of an open relationship, and this was not articulated or communicated well with the George Dyer character, at least according to this movie. And this movie is based on an authorized biography, so maybe it is perhaps rooted in more truth than other things. But of course, you can only get so far deep into the truth. So the film takes a very unconventional approach that a lot of biopics usually take. For instance, it doesn't follow the cradle to grave type of structure, the rise and fall of an artist or a musician that a lot of biopics usually like to use. Even though that's a very safe way to go about things, this film very much wants to be like a Francis Bacon painting. There is a very good use of wide-angle lenses, in particular at a bar scene that the film keeps going back to, where Francis Bacon socializes with his friends. There are these very strange close-ups with people drinking and talking, and it very much puts you in that kind of drunken camaraderie mindset. And there are these cutaways to some very disturbing images, very similar to a Francis Bacon painting, even down to some sequences showing two men having sex, and it is very much done in a very stylized, artistic way without being very just straightforward and graphic about it. And the film also is told in these series of vignettes that kind of fade to black after they're done. And I really did love that also about it, without having to follow the 3-act structure, a structure that I'm really growing tired about. Even though it's very important to have structure, it's good sometimes when a film either hides that structure or does take some risks away from that. But I do know how unpopular it is when people try to move away from that, because the 3-act structure is very much so ingrained in how we expect stories to be told. What is another interesting aspect and connection to Francis Bacon and the cinema, besides Batman, is his love for the Russian Soviet film Battleship Potemkin, which is a very famous early film showcasing the power of editing, I believe by director Eisenstein. And there is a very famous image of a woman screaming, and this is said to be a big inspiration for a lot of his pieces of work. So there is this cinematic connection to Francis Bacon's work aside from Batman. The film also has a small but supporting role with Tilda Swinton, and she's really just chewing up the scenery with her teeth and just the way that she is, even though she's not in the movie a lot, but she makes a very strong impression just from her performance. But a lot of this kind of deviated from who I thought Francis Bacon was as a person. Obviously, the film does show that he was very much battling his own demons. He had a lot of things going on. I'm sure was something that I'm sure reflected in his work, whether or not he knew it. But also, it kind of showed a different version of him that I didn't really think this person was, which was the social aspect. Whenever I saw his paintings, I kind of just imagined this recluse off in the woods making these paintings, doesn't really want to talk to anybody. But what this film shows is he was very much a very social person. And a lot of the scenes that he's with his friends talking, very kind of elite, intellectual type of conversations, resembled more of a Truman Capote-like character than this reclusive artist out in the middle of nowhere. Let me be clear, Francis Bacon here is somebody who is shown as someone who is very stoic in front of people, but from what I understand, things did affect them deeply, but they just were not good at showing that side of their emotions. And the character of George Dyer is one in this film that is not fully explored. I would say that there are some things that I'm still unclear about in regards to some character motivations. I think because the film doesn't follow a traditional structure and it's told in these series of vignettes, because of that, some things that you usually desire to understand are not there. And I think that's okay, but it left a lot of question marks. I think that's okay because not everything needs to be explained, but it may leave some people wanting to know a little bit more as to why things end the way that they do. What I also found interesting is the character that Daniel Craig plays here, somebody who's battling their own demons and has a lot of addictions, has some similar overlaps to one that he would more recently play in the film Queer, which if you are interested in watching, I have a whole video about, and you can click right there and learn more about it. Did you click it already? Or are you still here?